or tongue, to cheek or tongue. It's work from home Friday. And I got a baby guitar. Hey everybody, long time no see. Now, you'll notice from the last video that things around here have been pretty crazy. They're starting to settle down. We're almost through the July, but we're not quite there yet. Tomorrow I leave for my backpacking trip. That will be the last major thing in July. The major thing from this last week was the shed. Start off this story with some ancient history. Long story short, when I was in Texas, I very desperately needed a shed, and I am very cheap, and so I went to Lowe's, and they have those kit sheds at Lowe's that you can buy, and you can actually build it yourself. It saves a lot of money, they're relatively inexpensive, so I went with that route. Now, in order to install one of these sheds, you have to have a level base, and while our yard was fairly level in Texas, it needed a little bit, so I rented a tiller. I tilled up the yard, raked it, and got it all nice and level. That took one whole weekend of me doing it by myself. The second weekend, I ordered 4 tons of gravel, which we transferred to the backyard in wheelbarrows, and it was hard work, but we got it all nice and pretty and level and ready for the shed. Once we got the shed kit all unloaded and sorted, we painted the panels and went to work on building it. My good friend David Hen and his boys Zach and Nathan came over to help with the construction. After one day of backpacking effort, the 4 of us were able to finish the floor and 3 walls, which, as you can see, does not a shed make. Over the next 2 weekends, we finished the 4th wall and the roof and the shingles and the paint touch-up, and oh my gosh, what a lot of work it was. So after 5 weeks of work, I finally had the shed built. It was great, I was all moved in, although I have to say I was underwhelmed with the quality. The studs that made up the structure of the shed, instead of the standard 2x4, were 2x3, which was weird, and there was not very many of them. They were on 24-inch centers, and on the ends of the shed, there was hardly any studs at all. And the main joint of the roof joist was held together with scraps of siding instead of, like, wood or metal. It was weird. So when we bought our new place here, and I made the plan for how I was going to gravel in the side yard and build a shed and all this kind of stuff, the very first thing that Tammy said is, "You are not doing this yourself." For one thing, the area that I was going to gravel in was more than 4 times larger, which means 4 times more gravel. And totally apart from the effort that it took to build the shed in Texas, the poor quality of that shed was just not acceptable. So I decided to go with Tuff Shed because number 1, the quality is amazing, and number 2, they build it for you. But before I could even start talking about a shed, obviously we have to get the yard ready first. And the yard was a mess. Not only was there no grass and all weeds, underneath that there was gravel and bricks and metal edging and oh, what a mess. Oh my gosh, the bricks. But the landscapers brought in this really cool machine and they just scraped everything off down to the dirt and hauled it away. Not only did they scrape away the disgusting yard that I had, they built a fence and they brought in over 16 tons of gravel. Man, these guys did good work and I didn't have to lift a finger. Now the backyard here is sloped, and as I said before, sheds have to sit on a level foundation, so I had to come up with some way to build a foundation that would be level for the sheds. Where could I get a bunch of stuff that I could use for a foundation? Oh my gosh, the bricks. I worked really hard for several days with a trowel digging out the dirt so that I could get the bricks down and everything would be perfectly level for the shed to sit on. And finally on Tuesday, the shed showed up, yay, with one guy. His name was Chris, and I asked him, "Where's your crew?" And he said, "I'm the crew." Huh? So Chris was going to build the shed all by himself in one day. Yeah, right. So I asked him about my brick foundation and I said, "Is this gonna work? Do I need enough? Do I need to fill in the gaps? Do I need more bricks?" And he was like, "Heck no, you did like 10 times what was really necessary." Turns out that the steel floors in these things are so rigid that you don't have to fill in the whole thing. It will support itself pretty well. Then Chris got to work on the shed. They put 1 coat of paint on it in the factory before it arrives, and he had to put on the 2nd coat after he got here. I also noticed that a lot of the components were already prefabricated, which saved him a lot of time, and he was able to build the whole shed by himself, even with a rain delay, in one day. I really love my Tuff Shed. Not only did I not have to build it, the quality is amazing. I mean, it is 1,000 times better than what I had before. The process is not entirely finished because I've got some customization I want to do. I'm going to build a custom workbench in there, I'm going to put in some shelves. It's going to be great, and once I finish that, I will be able to put both cars in the garage again, and it will be awesome, and I am looking forward to August when I can sit down and relax. I'll see you next time. Now you'll notice that last week was pretty nuts. If you didn't watch it, days with a trowel and a level, no. The backpacking trip that I'm actually going on tomorrow is That was a good one. I worked really hard over and now there's another airplane. I wanted to put River acting just right so that they could have a good level foundation for the shed. I can do this.